All right, Sports Inquirer here with Georgia State women's soccer head coach Ed Joyce. Speaking to me on game day, we'll get to that in a moment. But before we get to the actual stuff on the field, it's been an interesting time for all of us involved. I'm sure for you as well as a head coach. How has the offseason been, and then the preseason training camp, just dealing with all of the regulations I'm sure you've had to incorporate into your preparations?
Yeah, I mean, the off season was, I think, tumultuous and not at the same time. So obviously we didn't do a whole lot with the team. You know, they left campus in August, so it was a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of kind of texts and phone calls to check in on see how we're doing. But the girls did a fantastic job, kind of maintaining fitness levels, maintaining positivity, more importantly. And kind of keeping eyes on the fall. But it was a long 4 or 5 months where you're just looking to see where the break's going to come and where we're going to kind of get back to playing again. And thankfully here we are. But pre-season itself was longer than usual by a good 2 or 3 weeks, which I think was good for some of our younger players to kind of get a feel for the change in everything, changing lives, changing roommates, changing teams, changing styles, a lot of changes that normally our kids have to acclimate to in a couple of weeks. You know, so we're a bit longer to do that. But obviously with COVID, we've had a really strict mask policy, which our kids, they don't train in them, but pretty much every other time they're around each other, they're in masks. Our testing policy at Georgia State is really good, so we get results quickly, and that's been really reassuring as a coach, you know, to make sure that, you know, we're doing things as safely as we can, and that's the goal for us at the moment.
You returned 24 players from last year's roster. How beneficial has that been with this transition into this new normal for all of us?
It's been really good. I mean, we're in a really good space in the spring. I got to play 2 spring games, did a good job with those, and we're really trending in a nice direction. And obviously, you know, the whole world stopped, so it wasn't just us; the whole world stopped, and kind of put a little bit of a pause in those proceedings. But they kind of picked off where they left off. And you know, fortunately for us, you know, they've been really kind of switched on in terms of, you know, acclimating the new players into the group, as well as kind of keeping the same mentality they had in the spring, which was really hard working, kind of blue collar attitude that, you know, has transferred nicely into what we're doing at the moment.
And you win your season opener on September 11th at Mercer with a late goal by Brooke Hart in OT, and Liz Fogarty also scored. Discuss just how big that was for the team to finally be in a competitive match against another squad and getting a win in your opener.
It was huge. I mean, I think I think a lot of us probably didn't see that day coming in terms of even getting to play. As you know, the summer went on and it just kept on going and kept on being, you know, looking at the news and seeing things not progress as well as we'd hoped. But I think it was relief to get to game day, and obviously to put a performance in that they can be proud of as well. I think was just huge. You know, getting obviously a great goal from Liz, which, you know, I think made some news outlets with how quality it was, and obviously getting a freshman to get the winner. It's huge for her and her confidence, and I think for all the new incoming players to see that, you know, this is something that you can impact. You know, we can use the soccer field as a way to kind of get back to some semblance of normal the best we can.
Yeah, it did. Maria Subis was named Player of the Week. Your goalkeeper had 5 saves in the contest. Discuss her performance and the defensive effort to hold on to that, or at least get the game tied into regulation.
Yeah, I think Subi had a good game. I mean, she joined us in the spring, so she had the spring with us. But I mean, she's been in World Cup squads at under 19 level, under 17 level. Sorry, she's been in European Championship squads with Spain as well. So she's been around top players and been in, you know, really professionally run environments, you know, while still, you know, being an amateur player. So she's been around it. So having someone back there who's mature and can manage the game is huge. It's not like getting a brand new player back there. It's like having a junior senior behind us. So that was huge. I mean, it was a huge game because, I mean, she had, you know, 5 saves, of which maybe, you know, one of them I would say was more than routine. We had a few opportunities in throughout the game that I thought were pretty good for us, that we could have probably taken it in extra time. But to have her back there and be able to trust the keeper to keep you in games that sometimes shots are going to hit the goal. So we have a goalkeeper. So I think having her in a position to help us there and be able to trust her is huge for us.
And now we speak today on game day, September 17th at Appalachian State. I see you're in the hotel room, so you traveled the day before. And a lot of people aren't doing that. Usually they're traveling day of, but that's a long trip for you. Have you had to change any of your pre-game routines or your travel schedules because of everything that we're dealing with? And how are you helping the players get used to it?
Yeah, we've changed a lot of things. We usually try and get out of the hotel and get to a restaurant and eat in the restaurant. We're not doing that. We're ordering food in, individualized for each player. The bus is a lot more regimented. Wearing masks on the bus with only one player for every 2 seats. Things like that in the past weren't quite so regimented. We felt it's necessary to do. It's that fine balance. Lots of teams are doing up and back in a day for a lot of trips. But then there's a safety component there, like doing 5 hours there, 5 hours back. Is it safe? Probably not. So it's a fine balance. We just have to mitigate as much risk as we can when we're on the road, and that's the focus for us. And to be honest, our kids have been great at it since they've been here.
Yeah, and then lastly, Appalachian State themselves, familiar opponent, Sun Belt opponent. What are you looking to see the team do well to come out with a victory?
I mean, the weather's going to be a bit of an equalizer for everybody. I think whoever's going into the game as a favourite is probably a little bit pegged back by the weather. We're supposed to get, I think, 1.8 inches today up here. So fortunately, it's on synthetic, so we can still play. But it's going to be an interesting game. I think the focus for us is making sure that we do what we do, and don't allow us to get kind of in some of the patterns of play we did against Mercer, which is a kind of back and forth physical transitional game. And we want to get on the ball a bit more and get it down. But to be expected, the first game of the year, I think, after a long time out, was always going to be a little bit frantic. So hopefully today we can have the possession and kind of get more of our style of play going, kick off some belt play.